What's up guys, the StrongBoys19 here and welcome to a new album review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from this beloved, legendary status received band of melodic death metal, Dethklok, entitled Dethalbum 4. This is the first album in terms of originality to be released in close to a decade, because this is the follow-up not only to the sequel of Dethalbum 3, but in terms of the whole discography, this is the first in almost 10 years since the release of the soundtrack of the Doomstar Requiem. This album was released through a record label called Water Tower Music, and as well as that, Dethklok has been created from the genius who is Brendan Small. He also created a amazing and fantastic yet hilarious TV series that is Metalocalypse. The whole genre, involving some old In Flames to Amon Amarth, have been a blast to digest and to be in love with the genre, but when it comes to Dethklok, they are no exception. This entirety of the record was created not only by Brendan Small himself, but with the involved drummer that is the iconic mastermind of Gene Hoglan, who had worked with Brendan pretty much from the beginning of this band's existence. And I was really anticipated to finally hear some more new Dethklok releases, because Dethklok are one of these other metal bands that absolutely takes me back into my moments as a teenager when I was getting obsessed and just pretty much addicted to the whole show of Metalocalypse. And what really stands out incredibly well is not only the show, but from the wizardry and originality of Brendan's music. The first track on the album, Gardener of Vengeance, already off to a fast start with excellent drumming, groove-packed riffs, and brings a ton of chugging playing styles. A lot of parts go through the chorus, was just awesome, full of hooks all the way through this one, precise lead works, and it is such a phenomenal song to begin the rest of the later upcoming material for this album. It was a growing favourite the more I was admiring the power from the whole song. Aerotic desecration, lightning speed and control, aggressive to the core. Gene's drumming was stunning through his own arrangements, and it steals the show. A heavier number involving dive-bombing wails from the lead guitars to these well-controlled double bass pedaling. The bridge section is one of my favourite moments from the songwriting, as I find it just as addictive from the layered guitars, as it sounds full of suspense and as well as harmonic. It's one of the most awesome pieces of new music in a long time from Dethklok, and even the breakdown finale section closes the song brilliantly. Poisoned by Food, nasty beginning. It's grimy and filthy from its force of creation, and remains as one of the heaviest songs that Dethklok had created, in my opinion, intensifying and a powerful one from its madness. Vocally sounded just as brilliant, and it adds so much more of the punishment and strengths. Mutilation on a Saturday Night. A lower tuned song this time around, but still adds tight structure, a grabbing attention on how dynamic and as instantly catchy it is from the whole beginning point to the remaining later parts of the song. It's one of my favourites in terms of the direction and its presentation, increased melodic arrangements to adrenaline combined all together. Fantastic lead work, just as dedicated and as inspired to what Dethklok has done best for a lot of years. Bloodbath, beautiful harmonic and keyboard orchestrated sounding music, and the glory of the song continues. Its terrific presence was there, takes itself into one of the highlight moments, which is the memorable approach. There's a lot of this ability of hooks from a lot of the sounds in the earlier albums, and it still remains just as consistently with this album, and Bloodbath is a perfect example. Admiring beats, twin guitar greatness, another favourite for me, just like with some of the others so far, and yet it was wickedly executed and as dramatic. I Am the Fire. These projected growls in its range to the violence of instrumentation was just vicious and hungry. A monstrous track, never stops being so unapologetic. Some say it's like a follow-up to a previous track called Ghost Queen. Really admire the progression and its increased melody and the powerhouse of the musicianship. Following after the last track was definitely an awesome placement in terms of the track listing, because this has a lot of firesome moments in its nature, and I Am the Fire gets better so much more the more I listen to this track. Horse of Fire. This beginning to the later remaining parts weirdly makes me think of Strapping Young Lad, who are another one of my favourite bands of all time, and obviously a band that Gene Hoglan previously worked with Devin Townsend's creative mindset. But Horse of Fire fits in well from the whole environment to go along with the other songs on this album. It's engaging, crafted imagery to the balance from its mood and striking presentation. I love a lot of the sounds of this track very much. Focuses on variation from the guitars to the drumming. It's just a gigantic combination, 100%. Deadface. Slower, calmer move into the acoustics to begin with, and yet alone the building of the pace remains the same all throughout, with the big sound of the band, a transition after a lot of the other heavy songs from earlier, and then for later on it's hypnotic, and when it comes to hearing the other sounds of the guitars, it can be pretty dreamy, but this has so much chemistry, makes a difference that works as effectively, and it's just as musical from Brendan's skills, and it's glorious to hear a lot more of the appearances of more of the heart and soul. Satellite Bleeding, probably my least favourite number out of this whole record, but it still grabs through its mid-tempo, variety-sounding riffs. A part of the writing can be, in my opinion, a bit sludgy, as the vocals also were highly presentable. The produced sounds from the lead was clear and thick and as well made. Gene Hoglan's patterns during the soloing going on stood right out, and it adds a big plus for me. The second to last track, SOS, menacing and yet just a blessing to hear this action in full swing here. The intro goes on longer than the others, however, I have loved this one. The remaining elements of the song involving double bass pedaling, loud cymbals, and its delivery was brooding and brutal, and you can hear more of the keyboard orchestrated elements in its climax. And the last track, Mermaider 3, a sequel once again, because Mermaider has been pretty much an iconic one as one of the best compositions in the history of Metalocalypse and Dethklok put together. It's spectacular, pretty much a lot of the same elements from before that we've heard previously. It's a continued legend of a song. It didn't want to be so different and too away from what it sounded like previously, because this one is as similar and yet it's as phenomenal. Gene's drum riffs during the melodic lead lines were explosive, and as a final song to finish this album, it could not have been just as perfect. The production is also very, very good, although the only criticism that I have, besides that Satellite Bleeding being my least favourite, the production is a tiny bit overproduced, because I couldn't hear the whole projection through the mixing of the vocals. The vocals were another memorable moment in hearing the lyrics to what it's all about, and the guitars were blaring a bit louder than the vocals. The same goes with the drums and a bit of a lack of bass. However, this is a solid produced sounding album, but nevertheless, Dethalbum 4 by Dethklok is a very, very, very good album. Once again, from one of my favourite bands in the genre. That's personally all I would like to say of Dethalbum 4 by Dethklok. Much love and a huge well done to Brendan Small and Gene Hoglan for being as professional and as one of my favourite metal musicians put together. Let me know what you think of this album in the comments down below. Do you love this album? Do you think it is maybe your new favourite album in their discography? Is this one of your favourite albums of 2023 so far? I'm going to give Dethalbum 4 by Dethklok, I would say, an 8.5 out of 10. There's a lot of the high enjoyment. There are some tracks that I have loved from the start, and some moments can be growers, but Dethklok as a band has been, as I said, one of my favourites, and definitely check this one out if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.